in the dry, dust-choked hills of northern Italy. 1944. The mountains rose like broken teeth. By that stage of the war, every Allied soldier knew Italy was no soft underbelly. It was a fortress, defended by seasoned German units who were masters of the terrain. The 141st Infantry Regiment of the U.S. 36th Division had already seen horrors that would last a lifetime. Men who arrived fresh-faced now carried the weight of ghosts. Among them was a quiet brown-haired Texan corporal named Michael Reeves. He wasn't a Hollywood hero, not the loudest or the strongest, but he had a stubborn sense of duty that couldn't be shaken. Michael had joined because it was expected of him. He was the son of a mechanic, an older brother to two little sisters. He liked simple things, the smell of machine oil, the peace of early morning ranch air. War had taken all that and replaced it with a constant hum of fear, but he never complained. His comrades called him Steady Mike, not because he was fearless, but because he always pushed through the fear. The moment that would define his life began on a cold October morning. The fog was thick, turning the world into ghostly shapes. The regiment had marched all night. Their objective was to secure a ridge and link up with the 1st Battalion ahead of them, but something went terribly wrong. The 1st Battalion advanced too far, too fast, and walked straight into a German ambush. Machine gun fire erupted from the high ground. Mortar shells crashed down. Within minutes, the battalion was surrounded, nearly 500 men pinned down, trapped, and unable to retreat. Desperate radio calls filled the air, requesting immediate support. "We are taking heavy fire. We are surrounded." Repeat, surrounded. The commanders behind the lines knew the situation was catastrophic. The terrain made any rescue attempt suicidal. The Germans held every advantage. Higher command issued a firm order. No unit is to attempt a rescue. Hold position. No exceptions. Michael Reeves heard the order through the crackling field radio. He was sitting in a shallow ditch, the air smelling of damp leaves and burned cordite. Men around him muttered curses. They all knew friends in that trapped battalion, but orders were orders. Michael sat still, staring at the slope where smoke drifted upward. Somewhere beyond that fog, men were fighting for their lives. Every distant burst of machine gun fire felt like a countdown. He should have accepted it. He should have stayed put. But something inside him twisted. He thought of his father back home, who always said, "If something needs doing, you do it." He pictured his little sisters asking, "Did you help people, Mikey?" Orders said stay. His heart said go. As the sun rose higher, the fog began to thin, and the gunfire intensified. Michael stood up. At first, no one noticed. He just got to his feet, slung his rifle over his shoulder, and stepped out of the ditch. Only when he started walking toward the ridge did the others realize what he was doing. "Reeves, where the hell are you going?" Someone called out. Michael didn't respond. "Mike, get back here. That's suicide." Still, he walked. Sergeant hurried after him, grabbing his arm. "You hear the order. Nobody moves up that slope." Michael looked him in the eyes, calm and steady. "They're going to die if someone doesn't go," he said. "I can't sit here and listen to that. You leave this line, you're disobeying command. You'll be court-martialed, Reeves. You understand?" Michael nodded once. "Yes, sir." "Then get back in that ditch." Michael gently shrugged the man's hand off. "I can't." The sergeant stared, torn between duty and the ache of watching a good man walk into hell. He couldn't stop him. Deep down he wished he had the same courage. Michael turned and kept walking, the fog swallowing him from view. Behind him, the platoon fell silent. Some whispered prayers, others whispered, "He's dead." What no one knew was that before the day ended, Michael would lead an impossible rescue that military historians would later call one of the most reckless acts of bravery in the entire Italian campaign. The climb was brutal. The hillside was muddy and slick with broken rocks. Michael stayed low, using every bit of cover he could find. He had no backup, no radio, no map, just his rifle and a determination that overrode every instinct screaming at him to turn back. As he neared the first rise, he heard German voices, a guttural shout, the clank of equipment, the bark of a machine gun. He dropped into a crouch, heart pounding. Edging forward, he saw one of the German machine gun nests spraying fire down onto the trapped Americans. 3 soldiers manned it. Michael's pulse thundered in his ears. He raised his rifle, exhaled slowly, and squeezed the trigger. His first shot dropped the gunner. The second German turned in shock too late. Michael fired again. The third scrambled for cover, but Michael was already moving, closing the distance. The fight was over in seconds. He crouched in the abandoned nest, breathing hard. He was halfway there, but 3 more machine guns still hammered the Americans. The Germans would be coming to investigate. He had minutes, maybe less. He looked around and found something invaluable. German smoke grenades. He grabbed all of them. Then he took the machine gun itself, a heavy MG-42. Dragging the weapon, he moved across the punishing terrain. Every sound made him flinch. 2 minutes later, he reached another ridge, close enough to hear the desperate shouts of the pinned-down men. He peered over the edge. What he saw clenched his chest. Nearly 500 men crammed into a shallow depression, medics rushing between them under fire. They weren't just trapped, they were being shot apart. A surge of anger washed over him. He was staring at friends, men he'd played cards with the night before. He set down the MG-42 and started planning. He saw the German machine gun nests were firing from 3 positions. And then he realized something crucial. The Germans believed the Americans couldn't escape uphill. They weren't watching their rear. It was his only chance. He pulled the pin on a smoke grenade and hurled it onto the slope between the nests. Thick white smoke billowed up. He tossed another, then another, creating a spreading cloud that blurred the Germans' line of sight. Confused shouts erupted in German. Michael used the cover to sprint toward the first nest. He reached it just as 2 soldiers emerged from the haze. They weren't expecting an attack from behind. Michael fired 2 shots. Another MG-42 fell silent. He didn't stop. He moved toward the second position, staying inside the drifting smoke. The world was muffled, eerie. He spotted the second nest, 3 Germans reloading, unaware they were exposed. He fired. 1 collapsed. Another dove for cover. The third spun his gun around, a burst of fire tearing inches above his head. Michael rolled, fired again, and hit the gunner. The last soldier tried to run, but Michael ended the threat. Another machine gun gone. Below, the Americans realized the fire had lessened. They looked up, shielding their eyes. Whoever was helping them was close. Michael climbed toward the final nest, but this one was different. It was a fortified position with at least 6 Germans. He didn't stand a chance against them alone. But then he saw a crate of grenades among their supplies. He threw a rock to create a distraction, and when the Germans turned, he lobbed a grenade into the nest. An explosion. He threw a second one instantly. Then he charged. The smoke was thick. The position was destroyed. An eerie, fragile silence washed over the ridge. Michael stood there, breathing hard, hands trembling. He had just dismantled the entire rear flank of the German force, alone disobeying orders. He looked down. Hundreds of American soldiers stared up at him, stunned. He waved his arm, signaling them to move toward the smoke. At first, there was hesitation. Then someone shouted, "That's our way out." The trapped battalion surged upward, and Michael realized with a terrifying clarity that he wasn't done. He now had to lead them through the very path he had barely survived himself. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story of incredible courage, please like this video and subscribe for more untold tales of heroism. We'll see you next time.